a breakdown on Blade Trinity, which, arguably might be the least of the Blade movies, right? In the Blade arc. I think if it's me, and it is me, by the way, I kind of feel like Blade 1 and 2 were the height of it, right? Like sometimes I go back and forth. Sometimes I go back and forth on what was better, like 1 or 2. 1 was extremely impactful on me at this time. When I first saw Blade 1, yeah, I was like, damn. And then Blade 2, man, that's a really good follow up. And I was really hype when Blade 2 came out. And I would say, like, both of those films kind of lived up to the hype, right? Both those films kind of made it happen in different ways. Because as much as I love the Blood Pack, and that was cool, the Blood Pack was kind of dope, especially Nisa, for unknown reasons. But the other guys were also dope, like, Ron Perlman, his role, and the other guys, Chupa, and everybody, man, right? Everybody. Y'all remember this, right? If you know Blade, you know if I see you in the streets and I hit you with that, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, right? And if you don't recognize that, then I don't see how we friends, okay? So that's where it is with Blade. So we're coming up on Blade Trinity, and at this time, we really have to kind of look at, Wesley Snipes and the franchise as what it was, right? Like, quick intro. This film comes out in 2004. Blade is really viewed as this apex predator. That's what he is. And this film really leans very hard into that whole, ideology. He's this apex predator.
That is correct.
So the Daywalker's mission statement is going to give you in under 5 minutes. This is what he does. The intro, now there's the intro to the movie, the first couple of minutes of the movie, which are really good, right? It kind of sets up a good backdrop. But I want to get to the part where we talk about who Blade is at this point. What's going on with Blade? Because Blade is always defined, to me, by his fight scenes. Like Blade doesn't talk a lot. When he does, like Whistler said, right, Blade doesn't say much about anything. But when he does talk, man, he gives some classic one-liners. But not a lot of talking from this guy. So this is the first time we see Blade on the screen in this movie. And we're probably like 6 minutes, that's like 7 minutes in. So it's 7 minutes into the film before we actually see Blade himself. And what that tells me is that, right off the bat, Blade's not as much in control in this movie as we're traditionally used to seeing him. Now, he gets right, so there's this whole setup going on behind him, but let's get into as we start to define Blade as he is in this Blade Trinity. Because I think he's a different kind of killer. I think he's still a killer, obviously, that doesn't change. But I think he's a different killer. So he comes on, like, and immediately you can see, the film starts off, or his scene starts off literally with this burning, this exploding building, right? And you see, if you can see in there's somebody burning up right there. Let me see if I get a clip of the other. Oh, this is the other part, right? Really kind of starts off with this. And what this is somebody, vampire, I'm assuming. I'm going to assume this is someone vampiric, right? Somebody vampiric is getting burnt up and got tossed off the building.
Damn!
Right? And then we get to see the burning building. So this is a different Blade. And I'm going to explain all the ways that this is a different Blade. This Blade is not stealthy. This Blade is not the stealthy Blade that went to vampire clubs. Like, it's different when you're cleaning up vampires at a vampire club. And that all got handled in-house, right? None of that spilled over. In fact, he saved the only human in that initial killing scene. This is what I'm going to compare the initial Blade kill scene to this Blade Trinity's initial kill scene. And in Blade Trinity's initial kill scene, he kills a human. So we'll get to that. So it's a different Blade. It may be a different time. And we're going to look at all that, all right? But let's give a little backstory. I like to give a little backstory on, what the story is. So this is 2004. So we're post 9/11, right? And we're getting a lot of action films. We're getting a lot of, like, SWAT tactic films. We're getting a lot of surveillance culture. And we're getting, like, massive government overreach at this period of time.
That a bitch.
So this is culturally what's going on with all of us, right? 2004. And superhero movies were not the billion-dollar juggernauts that they are right now. Like, the X-Men at that time was still mad sketchy, right? Even like Spider-Man, it was kind of like I still don't really mess with movie Spider-Man at all. And as a kid, and again, I'm Gen X, right? So I got a long history with this shit. The comic book version of Peter Parker was where I lived at for a long time because he was a teenage superhero, right? When I was a kid reading this, it was relevant, right? But it never made the leap over. So anyway, what I'm saying is that during this time, the movie studios at the comic book companies were not killing it. Outside of this film, even DC stuff, man, was like really floundering. I think like their animated stuff was probably pretty good. Their series were good, but they weren't like hitting it in movies at all. You know, it took them till kind of recently that they've had some real success with their movies. So at this point, Blade is OG status. He is that dude. So he's already gotten two hugely successful movies. Blade 1 and Blade 2 kind of set the standard, for the hero genre, or at least, superhero movies. Why did the third one have such a dip off? Well, it feels like it's a little underproduced. Feels like there wasn't as much, production quality, paid to the movie. Like, it was a lot of tension. And one of the first things we'll see, I always like to talk about, the directors at this time. Who directed this flick? And this is David S. Goyer. And this is his first time directing anything, okay? Now, he was a writer. He wrote Blade 1 and he wrote Blade 2. So he's a great storyteller. We can see that in him. He actually knows, writing the story. He's doing everything. But now, your directorial debut, should I say, because that's actually the word,